Walter Davis, and today's hot topic is I want to talk about renting and buying and what's more costly. I've come across a couple articles that I want to talk to you about today. I've read them and kind of went through them. I'm gonna highlight a couple things out of them and then show you something, at least from a standpoint of where you are here in Houston in comparison. But this one caught my eye. It starts off and it says there are only four major U.S. metro areas where it's cheaper to buy a home than rent a home. But buying is more affordable than renting in Detroit, Philadelphia, Cleveland, and of course, yours truly, Houston, Texas. The largest home ownership premium, of course, is in the Bay Area, where it's twice as expensive to buy a home than to rent a home. So what is that saying to you guys? That's telling you that if you were in the Bay Area, it would cost you 2 times the amount to actually buy versus rent. Whereas on the other hand, in Houston, here where we are, it actually costs you less to buy a home than to rent a home. But I want to show you some of those statistics here too. Nationwide, the typical home cost is estimated to be 25% more per month to own than rent. So if you take all of the major metros throughout the US, it's saying that it costs 25% more to own versus rent. Now, there's still some value in that, and there's still some reasons, but if we're talking just dollar for dollar, 25% more. If I was paying $100 in rent, that's basically saying now I'm paying $125 in order to buy that same house monthly. Doesn't seem like a lot, but that's because I use smaller numbers. You can do the math with $1,000, $1,500, or $2,000. A drop in mortgage rates would cause home ownership premium to shrink. So if the rates fell to 5%, buying the typical home would only cost an estimated 10% more than renting. Now, that's a huge statement right there, too, because that's basically saying is that if you pay $1,500 a month in rent, or you pay $2,000 a month in rent, which is the average. For me to buy on a $1,500 a rent house, I basically need to pay $150 more. That's if the rate was at 5%. Or with a $2,000 per rent house, I'm paying $2,200. That's not a big difference when it comes to mortgage versus a rent. So there are four major, I'm going to read some of this here too. There are four major U.S. metropolitan areas where it would be cheaper to buy than rent the typical home. That is, the typical home has an estimated monthly mortgage cost lower than its estimated monthly rental costs. In Detroit, the typical home is 24% less. 24% less to buy than it is to rent. The largest discount in percentage terms among the 50 most populous metros, that's if you're in Detroit. The median estimated monthly mortgage payment for homeowners is $1,296 compared with the median estimated monthly rent of $1,697. Next comes Philadelphia, 7% ownership discount, followed by Cleveland, which is 4%, and then Houston, we're 1% discount. So we're close, we're almost the same, but we're still a little bit less. So when you look nationwide, the typical home cost is 25% more to rent. So let me show you this here really quick. Let me flip over here to this page. Sorry, let me click. And let me share my screen here. So when you look at this graph here, you can see how, see way down here, what's the difference between the premium and the rental? Way down here, you see Houston, Cleveland, Philadelphia, and Detroit. Those are the only four out of all of these major cities that are actually, it costs close to the same or less to buy a home versus renting a home. So when you think about it on that level, you know what I mean? I always go back to, when you think about it on that level and you say, okay, according to Redfin's analysis, the U.S. single-family homes, condos, and townhouses in all 50 populous U.S. states and U.S. metros, we estimated with a home buyer's monthly housing payment would be on those properties using the Redfin estimate of home value in March, and a 6.5% mortgage interest rate, which if you notice, that's kind of where we are right now. We're at 6.5, 6.875, 6.75. We're in that realm of mortgage. The average rate in March. We estimated that the monthly rate would be and when estimating monthly housing payments, we assumed a 5% down payment, homeowner's insurance rate equal to 0.5 of the purchase price, and a 1.25% annual property tax if no tax records were available. So you got to understand that's the makeup of what they use to create those numbers. This is what I would tell you in regards to Houston, because for those of you that live in Houston, you understand that our tax rate when it comes to property taxes ranges quite a bit. We can go anywhere from 1% to 4%. So we'd have to put those numbers in there in a particular neighborhood in order to determine where it actually stood. But this is what I would say, even from the lowest to the highest percentage rate, you're still coming in very close to the same or less by buying a home versus renting a home, according to the numbers that they just gave there. Buying a home often makes more financial sense than renting if you can afford a down payment and monthly mortgage because you're building equity. When you own your home pays you. When you rent, you and your home pay the landlord. Buying isn't a feasible option for everyone. Of course, we understand that. It's a more feasible option for multiple people that don't know that it's a feasible option yet. In order to find that out, you got to reach out. Some people move around a lot, so renting might make more sense because they won't be in their home long enough to build equity. Many others simply don't have the money for the down payment. And I'm gonna tell you something, a situation that's very common is people don't have down payment money, but we have down payment grant programs that can help you with that. I just took a client where the program paid for their entire down payment. So that's no longer an excuse or a reason not to buy a home. Is if you don't have 3.5 or 5%, that's no longer a reason not to buy, because we have grant programs that can help you buy that home and they take care of the down payment. You don't have to pay back the grant, which is the most important aspect of it. What this is basically saying is mortgage rates would have to significantly drop. So if you're thinking about buying, if you're thinking about renting, if you've been renting for years now, the question is why do you want to continue to rent? There's a thing that they talked about in here where it said in the pandemic boom towns, virtually no homes are cheaper to buy than to rent. So in those times, if you're one of those towns where like all the pricing in homes went crazy, people were buying homes at $100,000 over asking price and all that crazy junk. More times than not, your prices are still elevated. So it might not be, if you notice based on that graph I showed you earlier, financially sound to rent versus buy, other than the simple fact that you're gaining equity. I mean, I would always lean you towards buying, but sometimes from a financial aspect, if you only make X amount of dollars, you only can pay X amount in rent or mortgage. So this is the thing I would tell you guys as potential home buyers and future home buyers going out there, is that real estate and mortgages are just math. It's nothing else. It's taking this dollar amount, it's taking this much debt, it's putting this stuff together at this interest rate, and that figures out the number that you can afford, okay? Now, a lot of us out there, what happens is we do it backwards. We go and buy a car and pay a $600, $700 car note, and then we want to go buy a house. Well, the problem with that is you've increased your debt to income ratio so high that you're beyond qualification for a mortgage. How you resolve that, especially if you haven't went out and bought that big car yet or that first great new car that you want, is you go buy your house. Your house is a asset that will continue to grow in equity over time, and it'll help your credit score. So as long as you're paying your mortgage on time, you're doing what you need to do, not only do you get to do what you want in your house. So if you want to paint it purple, you can. If you want to put a pool in the middle of your living room, you can. You can't, if you want to have 2, 3, 4, 5 dogs, you can. because it's your house. When you're renting, you don't get all those options. You got so many rules that you got to play to because that owner doesn't want that in their property. But when it's your house, you get to do what you want. But most importantly, you gain equity and appreciation. Your house appreciates, and over time, you're going to have equity in there where you'll be able to pull that money out, put it on the next house or the dream house, or do whatever, put it towards your kids' college fund. You can do a lot of different things down the road with that equity, but that's up to you. So hopefully this gave you some insight. This was today's topics about, like I said, renting versus buying. I think it's pretty exciting that Houston is one of 4 of the major metro areas that actually sees that buying puts you in a better position than renting right now. And I think it'll continue to be that way for some time. So as always, if you got any questions for Walter, give me a call, 832-257-9083. Tell me what you guys are paying in rent down in the bottom in the notes. I'd love to find out what people are paying in rent. I'd love to see anybody that's bought a house over the last couple of years, what they're paying in the mortgage, and let's talk about it. I'll see you next time on the next one. Bye-bye now.